I have no idea what happened to the trail. I lost it. It's somewhere, it's either above that creek on that hill, which I tried a couple of times, or it's somewhere over by that valley. What happens is the river floods every year and it washes out the trail, but I was looking for signs of like blazes and signs of the trail, but I couldn't see it. Hey guys, Martyupnorth. Today I want to do a quick video. It's a question I get asked a lot. A lot of people ask me about, they often see me with maps on in my videos. Either I'm using maps at home prior to the trip or I'm using maps on the trail. I am a map guy. I love maps. So I just want to do a quick video on tools that I use to plan my trips. Not so much the tools that I bring into the field, but the tools that I use at home to plan my trip. Alright, so if you've decided you want to go hiking somewhere, what are some of the steps that you do in planning your trip, or what are the steps that I do in planning my trip? So of course, step number one is deciding where you want to go, and I mean that's a personal preference. So I hike generally in in Alberta here in British Columbia, but when you're looking for ideas of where you want to go, there's several sources. Of course, there's the internet. You can go on the internet, lots of guys, lots of gals, lots of people blogging about their hikes in the wilderness. You can also, don't underestimate things like this. I mean, this is the visitor's guide. You can go to the Parks Canada website and you'll have tons of ideas, and that's a great source. And then of course there's books, right? There's lots of great books, the Aspiring Hiker's Guide. This is just one example. There's lots of books on the Rockies in particular, dozens and dozens of books. So the first step is trying to decide where you want to go. And actually one of the other things that I do on deciding where to go is I just stare at maps. And for that, one of the brands of maps that I like is the National Geographic maps. I mean, I just love looking at maps. So I'll take a map. I'll spend hours looking at a map. So you get a map like this, and then I'll just be looking, going, okay, where have I been? Well, I've been here, I've been there, but I've never been, this segment. So I'll look at a map, and then I'll go online and find information on, let's say, Lake Magog, and then I'll go on CalTopo and map it out and do my own thing. So it's planning a hike is as much fun as going on the hike. Now, personally, in Alberta and in British Columbia, actually, once you've decided where you want to go hike in this part of the world, you need this book. You need the Canadian Rockies Trail Guide by Brian Patton and Bart. This is the Bible. This book has been in print since 1971. This is an old edition that I have. It's I think it's the 6th edition that I have, and it is very, very, very well used. And in this book, and I've talked about this book in the past, the authors actually hiked almost every known trail in the national parks, and not only did they hike them, but they did it with a wheel and they measured the distances. So their description of the trails is so accurate, and their description of the distances is bang on, and this was done in the era prior to the internet. So this is such a Bible that when I was younger and I'd go to the park, this was sitting on the desk of the park wardens, and they would look at this as much as we would when advising us on where to go. And I'm pretty certain that when you're traveling in the backcountry of Jasper and you come across, or any of the national parks, and you come across the little sign markers and they have distances, those distances are all based on this book. This book was so important to me that in the good old days I used to actually photocopy pages and laminate them and take them in the trail with me. So in the days before the GPS and the internet. Now, very proud of the fact that I collaborated a little bit with the authors of this fantastic book, and a few years ago they sent me a revised edition with a kind note, Martin, a little token of our appreciation and get you up to date. So Brian sent me this book. It's autographed right there by Brian, but this one I cherish, and I actually don't use it very much. I'm gonna hand it down to my kids basically, but I continue to use my trusted old Bible. Here's details of what the trail guide looks like. So you get, actually, my favorite line, Only the most sadomasochistic backpacker in the world will want to hike the Skyline Trail using the Wabisso Lake Trail. So I've never done the Wabisso, but you know, here's an example. You know, you get a good trail description, and then you get all these distances, some pictures, some maps. So an overall a fantastic book. Now, after that, after books, certainly one of the more important planning tools at home, and you bring them in the field, are maps. And I just want to talk about maps real quick. So if you've ever bought a map, and I'll show you details of this old map, but this map here is a 1 to 200,000 scale. So what that means is that 1 centimeter on here is equal to 200 or 2,000 meters. So 1 centimeter is equal to 2 kilometers. So that's a very high scale. And a map like this is actually, when you open up a map like this, you don't get a lot of details. You get a high overview. Now, maps of this scale are very important because they allow you to see a big area and how things interconnect. Show this old map. Here's an old map of Jasper, a 1 to 200,000. So that's very high up. This map of mine has been extensively used. In fact, there's pieces of it missing because I've ripped it up over the years to make fires. But if I open it up, and this is the vastness of Jasper, everything that's in pink, that's highlighted in pink, are trails that I've done. So I've really explored most of Jasper. There's still a little bit of an area around the Snaring River that I haven't explored much. A very popular scale are the 1 to 100,000 scale put out by National Geographic, and the 1 to 50 or the 1 to 70,000 scales put out by Gemtrek. Now, let me talk about Gemtrek first. So Gemtrek is, I believe, an Alberta-based company, and they've put out a lot of different maps. In fact, if you pick up any one of their maps at a sporting store or an outdoor store, on the back there is a legend, and they have 17 maps. So because they're a 1 to 70,000 scale, it takes 17 of their maps to cover the entire national park network. So you got different titles like Bow Lake and Bright Creek, and different areas. And they come in paper, but the more modern versions come laminated. So they're available online. They're called Gemtrek, and I'll put a link below. But Gemtrek makes a great map. Now, the Gemtrek maps, what I like about them is, like I said, they have a lower scale, so a lot more detail, and I'll show a close-up of the details. But they've taken a topographic map and overlaid on top hiking trails, popular hiking trails, with a legend, and on the backside there's a description of those trails. They have distances between important, between waypoints and between milestones, you know, road closures, seasonal closures, where the campgrounds are. So just a very important source of information. And on the back, you can tell some of my maps have been very well used. On the back of these maps, they actually give descriptions of in writing of what's on the backside. So, you know, day hikes or mountain trails or bike trails, whatever. So very important, very useful maps in this part of the world. So there's 17 in the series. Here's one of the Gemtrek maps. So here's the scale. So here's Glacier Lake, for instance, fairly large, you know, larger than my thumb, and the kinds of details you see, some references to legends on the back, distance markers, things like that. So here's the overall quality. Now, a little newer to the newer arrival in the last few years are the National Geographic maps. Now they're a little bit higher scale. They're 1 to 100,000. They're laminated. They're not laminated. They're on a plasticized paper, and they're very similar. They're very similar to the Gemtrek maps, except that they're further scale. So when you're really, these are the ones I like to pour over when I'm sitting at home, and I bring these in the field. But You know, both are good. Both are virtually identical. They have trails overlaid, important trails overlaid on top of topographic maps. So these are illustrated trail maps. That's their primary purpose. They're not car maps. They're trail maps. Here's the National Geographic, and here's the same area. So because this is a 1 to 70,000 scale, you can see how this lake shows up a little bit smaller. So there's a little bit less detail, but I get a bigger area on the same size map. So still a very good map. So maps are important for these maps are good. They have defined trails on them. Now in Canada and in the US, in Canada we can buy Government of Canada maps. And in the good old days, when we bought Government of Canada maps, such as these ones, these maps are 1 to 50,000 scale. So this is a lot of detail, because 1 centimeter on here represents 2 kilometers, or sorry, yes, 1 centimeter represents 2 kilometers. And these provide like very close contours, but the trails are barely overlaid. And I used to use these maps when I wanted to go bushwhacking. When I was trying to get to lakes or places that were not as popular, these are the maps that I use. But I'm going to show you that nowadays, and in the good old days, these maps were printed by the government, and you bought them for about $10 a piece, and they were only updated every decade or so. Nowadays you can still buy these, but when you go to a store, what they do is they download a PDF and print it for you, and when they print them for you, they end up looking like this. I consider modern versions of these maps to be garbage, because they lose some of their resolution and the ink runs off if they get wet. So I'm hanging on to my old maps, but these maps and all maps are becoming irrelevant, because nowadays we have the internet. And I can find these topographic maps, I can find all sorts of layers, I can find satellite imagery on the internet, and I use a software called CalTopo, and I'll show you real quick what CalTopo is all about. But I like CalTopo for planning my trips. Of course, there's other tools on the internet. There's Gaia, there's All Trails and things like that. And in fact, you can get very good and plan using Google Earth or Google Pro, but I like CalTopo, and I'll show you a little bit about CalTopo.
All right, so here's the welcome screen for CalTopo. You can see in the top left-hand side here, it's found at caltopo.com/about. As I said, there's a free version and there's the paid subscription version. I'm going to go ahead and start a map here, and it's gonna, now I'm already logged on, you can tell by my email account in the corner. You can use the software without even logging into any account, but whatever work you do won't be saved. So if you want to save your work, I suggest you log in with either your Gmail or your Facebook. Now when I click on here, it brings up maps. I'm going to open up my YouTube demo, and actually I'm going to turn off this layer. So so this is your basic CalTopo view. It's a layer called the map builder topo, and on this basic layer you see things like features, like over here a summit with a name is there. You have contour intervals. You see green is below the tree line, white is above, lakes, features like that. And then you can see a couple of trails. You can see this blue one down here, and you can, oh sorry, red, and this other red one over here. Now, CalTopo is it uses features from, found in Google Earth and other software, Google Maps. So I'm going to turn off this layer, and I'm going to show you another layer. Instead, I'm going to go to and actually I'm going to turn off a couple of layers. There you go. So now this is a 1 to 50,000 scale map from the Geographic Services of Canada. And these maps used to be updated about every 20 years, and now they're available online. And you can see if I zoom in on this map here, it shows South Esk Lake, and you can see the faint outline of a trail. So even the Government of Canada recognizes there was a trail there. Now, my plan this summer is to hike from this lake from Southesk Lake to this little lake over here and do another loop around. Now, if I turn on a different layer, if I go back to the map builder layer, you see that now there is a red trail, and that red trail is an object. It's it's a smart object on CalTopo. It was put there either by somebody, another user like myself, or somebody at CalTopo themselves. But that what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a trail up to this lake, and I'm going to do it crudely just to show you how easy it can be done. So I pick a line and I give it a title, my trail, and now I can start clicking and building my trail through this part of the world where I think it's going to go. Now, and when I double click, it'll end there. Now that's a very crude trail. I'm actually going to delete that line, but show you one that I built earlier. So I built this one earlier, but I did it by turning on, the satellite layer and tracing by looking at the satellite layer. So I was going through this river valley, following this creek up, and then going around following the bend. There's obviously a cliff here, and then it gets tricky here. It's through the pass. Where does the trail possibly go? But I think I got it a good enough path. And so what this allows me to do then is now I have I have my own object. Sorry for all the movement. Now I can do something like click on this line, and it shows me that trail is what I've laid out as a path is 14.48 kilometers. And if I hit the profile button, then I can see the profile. So I can see that this trail is going to climb. It's going to have some steep sections, and actually you can see on the screen the little dot. Then I'm going to plateau right about here, and then after that I'm going to go down, and my lake is at the end here. So gives me some good planning information, shows me. So what I can do now is I can retrace this line, do it 2-3 times, and try and find a better path. I could take a different course altogether through this pass. And then once I'm happy with it, I can print these profiles. I can print these maps. I can print maps in different layers, and I can download to things like my GPS. So it's a fantastic planning tool. Just to show what's possible, I'm gonna load up one of my maps I've been working on this summer. I want to go up into a big loop up in the Wilmore Wilderness. So actually, while I'm on this page, this shows all the maps I've built and whether they're publicly viewable or viewable only with a URL. So let me go back to my Wilmore Wilderness one, which is right here. So this will show you what's possible. So in this case, I have different colors for different days, so I can see the individual distances that I'm going to travel on each day, and I can see which days are going to be hard. So for instance, if I click on this one on day 2 and I do the profile, day 2 is going to be a climbing day all day, and then a little drop at the end. Day 3, for instance, if I check the profile of day 3, it's got a steep climb over a pass and then back down. So it gives me information like that. And I've also put camps, known camps. Little Heaven is a known camp. The Ancient Wall is a known camp. But I've also put some theoretical camps. So it just shows you what's possible. What I plan on doing going forward is every time I upload a video of a hike, if I've planned a hike on this software, I will post a link to that map in the description. I wish I could do it as a card or as an end screen, but there's no other way. I can only put links in the description. So for instance, and I'm also going to do this retroactively. I'm going to go back to older trails. So a couple of weeks ago, we went to, we were hiking along the Klein River. So I will go back to that older video of the Klein River, and I will I'll add the link, this URL, in the description, so you'll be able to see it. So you'll have access to all my trails. And my other plan going forward is I'll do some more detailed videos, tutorials on how to use this software, because I think it is such an amazing software.
So there you have it. That was quick, but I just wanted to share some of the tools I use for my trip planning. So again, I use my Bible and other books. Of course, I use the internet. I watch other people's videos of where they've gone. The GemTrek maps are fabulous. The National Geographic maps are fabulous. And I especially like going online on CalTopo. There's other softwares, there's All Trails and things like that. But I find All Trails is just where people post what they've done. It's not so much as a usable tool. CalTopo is very useful. So is Google Earth if you know how to navigate Google Earth. But I find CalTopo a little more intuitive. So hope you enjoyed that. Please, and if you did enjoy that, hit that big subscribe button, give me a like, and by all means throw some comments in there. That's the best part of me doing these videos, is interacting with you folks and hearing the questions you have.